things are already pretty damn good, and I'm super grateful for that. But like, I'm not looking to take away from that, but I'm willing to test them in order for the nutrients that it brings. Because when we come into more of our capability and showing up for our higher version of self, or a higher perceived perspective, we're able to begin tracking a single point in a wave of experience. And those waves and points are rich. They're alive, they're real. And because they're alive to you, you're not blind to them, you're automatically opening yourself for a rich tapestry of life and world. And this is again where it's our world. It's not just my world or your world, it's our world. We live it together. If it's just my world and I'm completely isolated from the rest of reality, it's delusional. It's distanced from it's deluded from the illusion in that way, because even with this, we're sharing an illusion, and that's what we agree upon is what we call reality. And in that way, it's about having a sense of humor, because it's just a really, really, really good and healthy mechanism from a neurological point of view. It helps all of your brain networks kind of open up, your receptors be present and available for a new experience, as opposed to shutting down and distancing and, what's the word, like removing from your body, detaching? I can't remember the word. But, this body is your vehicle. That's where, this will be another way in which it pops up for me as well as others, but to treat it with love and gratitude and respect, and like honoring it as this vessel that you're moving with, that you have this deep relationship towards and through. Like it makes it a lot more fun, specifically when you think about it as a game where it's like, what stats am I going to increase? What stats are beneficial to increase? Like, what are my strengths already? What are my weaknesses? How can I finally, continue to make the space of being like, okay, cool, I'm at this level. Great. If I keep going along this trajectory, I get to that level. Whereas if I go a lot more up and direct, then I can get to this level. But those two themselves work, so where you're going is already where you're always going to go. But choosing to show up a little bit more, to put a bit more effort in. And not because, oh my god, I need to get there, and it's like taken me this long already, and like, what am I doing? But because, I wonder what that might be like. I wonder how much I could enjoy that. I wonder what the experience of that might be like. And that's where it's a case of, you are getting to that experience. You're getting to play, and you're getting to have the experiences brought to you that naturally lead you to that outcome. And there's no real right or wrong for you in that perspective, but there is true to yourself versus holding more true to others. And I just want to reintroduce the terminology that's realistically come up before, where it's self-full versus selfish. And because just if you look at it from, let's go again to the societal element of capitalism and how extractive it is. If you work a capitalistic job or are in a capitalistic perspective and system and whatever you want to call it, if you get sick, let's say as a teacher, and are sick more than once within 6 weeks or something, it's a red flag. Like there's a problem. So if you've been experiencing challenges or burnout or whatever, and your body is continuing to be run down, it's wrong that your body need rest, which can make an individual feel selfish, because they're not complying to what a system is looking to extract from them. Whereas, on a very real sense, it's just not reasonable. But because it's the societal norm, it's easy for it to get tagged in as this is the way it is, and that's just the way it's meant to be. But the way it is and the way it's meant to be, realistically, we're put in because someone was unreasonable enough to say, you're wrong, this is the way it is now, or this is the way it should be, or whatever. But eventually it changes due to that person's unreasonability. So the challenge there is to begin to remember where it is that you've called other people unreasonable, where it is that you have been unreasonable, and then whether or not that unreasonability is something that's beneficial. If you are playing something out because it was imprinted on and in you, or if you actually want that experience, that thing, that whateverness to grow and be the thing, And it's a cool little dance, because again, like from this elevated perspective, it's a case of, well, what I put into play now is going to circle out, cycle out, be planted, whatever you want to view it as. It's going to be there, and it's now going to be a relative orbiting body, that idea. So the greater the form of reasonability to your own truth, or unreasonability, well, both really, you get to go ahead and put flows in motion that can ultimately lead individuals to more of their whole self. And that's where it's kind of seeing it as this tunnel, this fiber optic experience of that light that led you there will connect when you're in alignment to it. In the corridor of light, it will naturally, instantly be present. And that's where it's about learning how to dance, move, express, shake, and experience yourself as a part of that wave process. Because the more that we can begin to see, feel, and then validate these parts, the more that we can actually use them. Because if I don't think something's open or real, or if someone's knocking at the door and I just ignore it, because I think, oh no, you know what, I put something against my door and it's just this thing knocking against it, so there's no reason to check it, then I'm completely excluding the fact that there's something there. And let's say even if the thing I put against the door is knocking, well, technically the wind is knocking it against the door. So it means that there's been this experience arising and this result of the wind rising in order to cause there to be a knock at the door. And I can choose to say that is, it's nothing because it's this. Or I can choose to say, maybe I could benefit with a little bit of fresh air, or just a moment present with it. Or maybe I don't want that knocking sound, so I'm going to move the thing off the door. There's no real right or wrong with it, but it's a case of learning to listen to the internal language that is moving with and through you, and to develop a relationship to your own essence there, because you get to have that, and whether you want to have it or not, it already exists, and it's already constantly being reworked. And yes, you can go and cultivate very deep stillness, but from my experience, cultivating very deep stillness just makes the awareness of this internal landscape that much louder, because there's less real noise in your space. So then when things make noise that is real, the truth of it knocks even harder, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, just ponder on it, and it will when it's meant to, if it's meant to. And if it's not meant to, hey, that's epic. Yeah, there's a degree of, I want to say, you being aware of how healing art can be, but it's really preaching to the converted, and more saying that the perspective you have of art can shift slightly, not because it's wrong or false, but it's been imprinted with others' perspectives, which has caused it to be a limited view of the playful expression of your own experience, which means that it's actually a laboratory of scientific exploration that you're going through, and that you get to kind of see that network and say, well, where does it interest me to even hold those ideas, or how can I let those ideas exist, that they naturally come to a degree of texturization with what is. Because when the thing isn't making sense, or it doesn't make sense to other people, there's a reminder of self-cultivation, where it's a case of, well, if there is something that's beyond logic, that in your own internal experience begins and has some level of sense to it, then it's a case of cultivating that with a degree of cynicism and critique, where you're not looking to discount or overly qualify it, but you're instead looking to recognize the reverberation of itself as the seed that allows it to blossom into a full experience of being. and that a little piece worked on it each moment and day is the way to allow it to come into full experiential being. And that's, your own self relative to the whole pattern. You're not meant to be stuck in the way that it has been or the way that you think it needs to be, but in the way that you get to show up for what can be. And that's like that what can be is very much the crux of the whole thing, is open yourself to all that can be, because from a limited view it's only limits we see, and yet the more that we choose to revel and be, the more that we open up to all that can be. And there's a lot of fun in that space, and a lot of newness and freshness, and regulation is very important, not just in what should be regulated, though that's a whole other thing, but in the process of being regulated sufficiently to experience the possibilities of life and the ways that they continue to show up and knock on your door, that you are allowing and open to. And it's very much about noticing that which looks very deeply through you as the points of self to navigate with, because when we only judge ourselves off of limited perspectives and